I threw myself deeply into church activity, 5 services a week. I taught 2 different classes. The classes were huge, big responsibilities. I was teaching part-time at the Bible college where I went to school, sometimes on the radio, doing seminars around the country, taking 3 or 4 trips to Israel a year. And I remember I was asked one day to go to we were having a big outreach in Los Angeles. And the Jews were all upset about this outreach, just like we are upset now about what's coming in July. And I was asked to go to a meeting like this meeting. And there were 2 rabbis that talked about the missionary problem and how the missionaries were using Jewish concepts, Jewish words, Jewish symbols, Jewish ritual objects to pretend to be Jewish, but really their message was Christianity. I sat right in the front row. I had a little kippah from the Tzfat, the holy city of Tzfat, and a little members-only jacket so I could feel the swoosh. I sat with my tape recorder and my notebook, and I listened to these 2 rabbis as they talked about the sheker of my life. And I thought, they're right. I'm wrong. But you know what? Here's the problem. Even if I'm wrong, this is my whole life. What am I going to do? I had been selling eternal fire insurance. What am I going to do now? Sell life insurance? Sell used cars? What am I going to do? And so I stayed in this church for almost 2 years, and I could feel it inside of me as it just began breaking down and breaking down and breaking down. And I remember toward the end, one of the things that just broke it for me. So every Tuesday was counseling day in my office. I would see 6 or 7 people back to back. God help you if you remember 6 or 7. I was tired. But we had a special way of counseling, and I took special classes in the back, dark rooms of this church, where they taught us about the real secret level things. We learned about the demons, the dark things. And I used to teach people that everybody could have one. Because just like you could walk through a forest and get a mosquito, or walk through a lake and get something called a leech that sucks the blood from you. There were spiritual entities like this. So I didn't say Moshe came to see me. Moshe comes to see me, he's number 6, number 7, whatever. And he said, I'm so depressed, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I asked him some questions, and Moshe says to me, I would say to Moshe, I hear God speaking to me, and he's giving me the number 6. Did something happen to you, Moshe, when you were 6 years old? Moshe thinks and says, yeah, my friends rejected me. I said, oh, Moshe. So, you've been in pain since that time. There was a demon of rejection that attached to your life when you were 6 years old. So I would take some olive oil, usually the kind from Eretz Israel, because that's the hot one. And I would put it on his head like this. And I put my hand on his head like this. And I would say to him, come out! The problem is, I laugh about this now, it was really sad. The problem was that one day I was doing this, I was working on somebody like Moshe, right? Like get the demon out of him. And I had a mirror on the wall, and I just happened to look, and I went, what is this? What am I doing? What am I? I'm messing with his head. Because I'm telling him he has a demon from when he was 6 years old. Do I know? No, I don't know. What do I know? I know nothing. I'm guessing. I was playing with his head. It was a terrible thing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't know what the truth was, but I was sure of one thing. Moshe's a good guy, but what I was doing was not the truth. I didn't know where it was, but I determined I was going to find it somehow. And I left the church room. It was an ugly, public, sad situation, and I became a boy for nothing again. I picked up where I was at 16. I'm a beekeeping. And I went through a crazy time. I was so depressed. Now, I didn't grow up with my father. I didn't know him very well, so I called him up one time, and I said to him, Dad, you lived all over the world. You did all these kinds of interesting things. You worked for different companies. Military, paramilitary, whatever. I don't know what to do with my life. Now, my father was from, I told you, he was from the South, right? Deep in the South. He spoke the language of the South. I can still speak the dialect. I said, Dad, what do I do? He said to me, well, Sanders, I'll tell you what. See, I'll tell you how to speak Southern. It's very simple. You speak slowly, and every one-syllable word is two syllables. For example, you don't say cat, you say hey, and you sing it. You don't say dog, you say dog. I see dog. And it takes them twice as long to say. But that's how you speak Southern. So my father spoke to me, he said, well, I'll tell you what, you just go somewhere nobody want to go, and you do something nobody want to do, and you have yourself a job. And it hit me. He's right. Papa, you're right. So I called my school where I went to graduate school, and I said, any jobs anywhere in the world? And they said, yeah, we need English teachers in Saudi Arabia. You want to go to Saudi Arabia? That's a place nobody wants to go. It's the biggest sandbox in the world. So what do I have to do? They said, well, they're teaching Bedouins in the Saudi Navy. And Saudi Navy? Saudi Arabia is a Navy? They should have, ATMs, whatever they call ATVs driving around the desert. They have some small boats they float around in that bathtub called the Persian Gulf. And they had these Navy cadets. So I went and I taught Muhammad and Abdurrahman and I was involved in some Christian activity in Saudi Arabia, which was not a smart thing to do because it's illegal. Very illegal. And I got kicked out of Saudi Arabia. It's terrible. Yeah. I'm out of the church. Even the Muslims don't want it. Where are the Buddhists? Give me the Hindus. They at least eat vegetarian food. I was talking to me and I said, I'm not sure what to do with my life. And the second time around, I have to reinvent myself. And this professor friend of mine said, well, what do you like? And I said, I love the Hebrew language. I love Israeli culture. I like Israeli food, Israeli music, Israeli poetry, Israeli Aryeh, and other liberal, atheistic poets. She said to me, do you know anything about Judaism? I said, no. For all my time in Israel, I didn't know much about Judaism. So my professor friend said, why don't you find a synagogue and go learn something? That seemed a logical thing to do. I said, okay, fine. Where do I find a synagogue? I don't know, look in the yellow pages. So I looked at the yellow pages under S. Right? After sin, there was synagogue. And I found a place called Shir HaMa'alot. I know Shir HaMa'alot. And then it said a friendly congregation. See, they love this. I don't want an unfriendly congregation. So I went to Shir HaMa'alot, a friendly congregation. I said, do you have conversion class? They said, more than that. We have a bar mitzvah class for adults that doubles as conversion fee. I think these Jews are so smart. 2 for 1. I like this. Where do I pay? And they gave me a 9-month course. And at the end of 9 months, I had a quick and easy, light and breezy kind of conversion. Some things optional. And I became Ben Galil Ben Abraham. Mazir Ben Galil. Ben Galil is, son of the Galilee, because I lived in the north, in the Galil. I love the Galil, so I became Ben Galil. I had a screen name, Ben Galil, at AOL.com. 3 days after my light and easy conversion, I had a bar mitzvah. Me and 15 others in my class. We had 16 Aliyah L'Torah in there. 3 guys, 15 ladies. It was quite a day. And then after the bar mitzvah, I took my friends out to a nice treif Lebanese restaurant to celebrate my bar mitzvah. They all said mazel tov as we ate, the mezza and the salad and everything. And that was it. Within 6 months, guess who was the Magid Shikur in this friendly congregation? Yes, you're right. I began leading the Torah study with these doctors and lawyers and professors and these brilliant people. Some of them had yichus like, wow, they couldn't believe it. And we would sit together every Shabbat morning and talk about the parasha, and why it did not apply to today. Now, I was very excited, and I began to read insights from the Dubno Magid and from Hasidic insights, and from this one and that place, and Poging with this place. And I began to bring in these stories from different people and share them. Some would go, wow, I haven't heard this since Bobby and Zayn. And other people would go, oh, I haven't heard this since Bobby and Zayn. I had mixed reviews on the whole thing. And after a little amount of time, I met some very sweet, Torah-observant people in Los Angeles. I told them my story, about how I became a Jew, and they said to me, I'm sorry, you're not Jewish. What do you mean? I have bar mitzvah. I go to a shul. All right, it's a temple. And I have Aliyah of Torah. And I pay $1,200 a year to belong. What do you mean I'm not a Jew? And they asked me, well, tell me about kashrut. Oh yeah, I said the milk and meat thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't eat at McDonald's anymore. Oh, progress. And what about Shabbat? Special day. Read the Torah. A little davening. Go to a movie. Shabbat Shalom. If there's a good sale at Nordstrom, maybe go buy a suit. Slowly I began to understand that if Judaism is a house, I was living on the porch. There was more to explore, but it would be a little scary. And so I knocked on the door of the RCC, the Rabbinical Council of California. They had black necks and long beards. They used words like machmir. You know, this word, strict observance of the law. I use words like naked. Easy. Take it easy. Don't get upset. After my first meeting with them, they said, I'm not so sure about this. I came to them and I said, hi, I'm Mark Sanders. I used to be a missionary in Israel, and I learned Hebrew, and I was in church, and I realized it was wrong, and I left, and I became a Reformed Jew, and now I realize I'm not a Jew, I don't want to be a real Jew, and so that's why, can you help me? They wasn't sure I was the real deal. They said, why don't you come back after the holidays? Now I ask you, do you know how many holidays are in the Jewish calendar? My father from Georgia would say, a whole bunch of holidays. That's what he would say. So I came back after Sukkot. They accepted me, and it took 18 months to create what needed to be created. I learned, I would drive 50 miles one way just to learn with my Rebbe once a month and once a week, and staying for Shabbat and learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And the more I learned, the sweeter it got. And the more I learned, the more I was motivated to learn. It was like I couldn't get enough of it. And I realized, I'm home. I'm really home. This neshama has found its way home. And after 18 months, the guy named Mark Sanders, who was named, my mother said she named me from a drugstore, that explained some problems I had as a teenager. Thanks, Mom. So this guy named Mark Sanders became Gavriel, Aryeh, then I'm going to meet him now. Why this name Gavriel? Because most people, they have a name like Martin, they choose Moshe, Mark becomes Mordechai or something like that. I chose the name Gavriel, Aryeh, because it reflects the truth about every Jew. What is a Gavriel? We have some Gavriels here. What is a Gavriel? Malach, yeah? Mm-hmm. Angel. What is an Aryeh? Lion, king of beasts. We have both these parts in us. There's an angel in you, and there's an animal in you. I have an angel, I have an animal. There's a spiritual part that wants to connect with Hashem, and there's an animal part that wants to eat all the chocolate cake. And what's the job of the Jew in his life? For the angel to ride upon the lion. That's the job. That's our inside avodah, our avodah pnimit ruchanit. To not kill the beast, not kill the lion, but like we say in the morning gathering, cause our Yetzer to be serving you. My Yetzer Hara is a great teacher. And so I've spent the last almost 7 years living in this path. It took me over 20 years to get here. But Baruch Hashem, I'm here, I'm home. There's so much more to share, but I've said enough. I moved to New York about 6 years ago. I got married about 4 years ago to a wonderful, wonderful woman who's been from all of her life. We have this phrase FFB, from birth. My wife is FBC, from but cool.